Crafty friends, it's Caroline, and I am back today to use up some scraps.
Yes, I am trying to keep myself accountable to using up an entire collection once I open it. Now, some of them I've been able to do that with, some of them I haven't, but I am going to try my best to do that today. When I made this project here for week 6 of Sandy's 13 Frights Before Halloween, I had a bunch of these cutoffs of 110-pound cardstock. And I thought, well, these would be great for bookmarks. They measure 2 and almost 3/4 of an inch wide. And I thought that this would be a really great opportunity for me to turn these into some bookmarks, maybe hand them out as well for Halloween, stick them in some little treat bags, something like that. You know, encourage some reading for the youngins, right? So I am going to use my die cutting machine, and I'm going to use these dies here by Heartfelt Creations, and these are some of my absolute favorites. They are the Album Tags and Accents die set. I'll have a link for them in the description notes below. I purchased these from Country Craft Creations, oh gosh, like earlier this year, maybe January-ish, maybe even before that, but sometime around that time. And you guys, they never get put away. They stay out here on my desk. That's how often I use this die set. I just love, love, love them. And I love that there is a matting die that corresponds to it as well. So let me show you how we're going to do this. I'm going to take my die cutting machine, and please excuse my plates. They are really messy. I need to clean them up, but for now they're fine. I'm not going to worry about it. I am going to get 2 bookmarks out of each of these pieces here. If you can see here, I'm going to position the die at the top so that it's sort of centered at the top. Now, obviously it's not the same. This paper isn't the same size, but corresponds to this die, but I love the detail that it gives at the top there, and I think it'll make a really cute bookmark. So I'm going to center the die at the top, positioning it at the top, run it through the die cutting machine, and then flip it around and cut the back side of it. And then I'll go through here and cut these in half so that I will make 2 bookmarks from each piece of paper, or at least that's my plan. I haven't actually done it yet, so that's the idea. I'm going to use this repositionable mint tape, and once I get it situated on here where I like how it looks, now I'm coming down below the top of the paper with this rounded portion here. And then I'm focusing on these 2 sort of shoulder cuts here, making sure that they have an even reveal on either side and are centered. But I'm also looking down the length of the paper to make sure I have a similar reveal here. I don't want it to be, crooked. Now, obviously it might be off by a little tiny bit, but it's going to be fine. I just want to get it as close to an even reveal on either side as I can. I'm going to put my top plate over the sandwich here, and then I'm just going to run it through, but I'm only going to run it through just this front portion there. Just that top portion is all we're trying to cut, right? And so now let's peel this off. And there you have it. We've got this really cool little design at the top of our soon-to-be bookmarks. And then I'm going to turn it around, peel my tape off, reposition this, okay? Trying to get an even reveal on either side of these shoulder cuts. And I'm also looking on down the sides here to make sure that I'm, not too off on a tangent here anyway. Go ahead and put that down, double check again, make sure. I think I'm looking good. I'm going to put my top plate on, just run that first portion through, bring it back out, peel it off, and there we have it. So I'm going to go ahead and run these through, and I'll be right back. Now that we've run these through our die cutting machine and our tops are looking all pretty, it's time to cut them in half. I've decided that I want to make my bookmarks 5 inches tall from the peak of the round portion there. So I'm going to kind of make a couple little marks on here first, and this may not be exactly where I end up cutting it, because what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to establish where one of these shoulders is going to fall. And by shoulders, I mean this straight portion right here, because that's going to allow me to consistently line it up and cut at the same place. And I'm thinking that at 5 inches, it's about there. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is just to pick a standard measurement, I'm going to cut them at 4.5 inches from the shoulder. And that's going to be just roughly right at 5 inches to the peak here of the round. But following that straight line on the shoulder is going to be easier for me to have consistently accurate cuts than it will be if I'm trying to line up this round piece here. So I'm going to go through and cut all of these at 4.5 inches at my shoulder mark. And now they're all cut to a uniform size. And I love the way this is looking. I think they're lining up really well. And yeah, I think these are super cool. In fact, as I'm looking at them, I'm thinking that it kind of looks like a tombstone. I may go that way with it. I don't know. I just think they look really great. And then I was thinking on the bottom here, I'm going to keep it simple and let's just do a corner rounding on the bottom here. So I've got my 1/4 inch quarter rounder. Well, this is actually a 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch. I'm going to come to here on the bottom pieces and just slightly round those corners with my 1/4 inch rounder. I'm going to go around and round all of these corners and I will be right back. So in an effort to get as much as I can out of these scraps, I'm going to cut them into strips that are 2 5/8 of an inch wide. And that's going to be just the right size to fit inside of these. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do with the little cutoffs here, because we're going to have a little strip here that's cut off as well. So I've trimmed these scraps down to 2 5/8 of an inch wide. On some of these 3x4 cut aparts, I'm going to use the back side here with these dancing skeletons. And on some of them, I'm going to try to figure out how to use this front. I think this too cute to spook little sentiment could be really cute. And so let's find a way to use that. I think that that's definitely usable. And I might even keep this little trick or treat portion down here. I'm not sure though. We may end up having to cut that off. When I place it here on my bookmark base though, as you can see, it's not going to be tall enough here at the top. So I'm going to cut it apart and then we're going to just add another piece of pattern paper to the top of this. I'm thinking maybe the plaid or perhaps the candy one here. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Let me cut this apart. So I've trimmed down my cut apart here. And what I need to do is I need to add a little paper to the top here so that I can make it a little longer. And how I'm going to do that is I'm simply going to turn it over. So I'm working from the back side. I'm going to take another piece of paper and butt right up next to it. Take a piece of double-sided tape. This just happens to be 1/2 inch wide double-sided tape. And as I'm sort of pushing those two pieces together, I'm just going to lay my tape on the back side here so that I've got some on either side of that portion there. And that's just going to join it together. And so now let's go ahead and trim it back down. And now I have a piece that's plenty long enough to fit on here. So for some of the pieces, I'm not going to need to do this. I'm just going to run them straight through the die cutting machine just the way I did the other ones. But on this one and on some of these other scraps here that I want to use, I'm going to join them together and, you know, like maybe put this one next to this one and then cut it to the 2 5/8 inch width. It's not going to matter. It's going to look really cute. I kind of like that patchwork effect anyway. So in the same way that we cut our bases for our bookmarks, we're going to cut these matting pieces as well. And how I'm going to do that is I'm simply going to place it on, place the piece of paper that I want to use for a matting on my die cutting machine base here on my cutting platform. And this time, instead of using the base die, the larger die, I'm using the matting die, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to lay it in here so that I've got, my two shoulder sides have a fairly even reveal around there. It seems like I'm pretty centered. I've got about an even reveal on either side here. And I'm going to take a piece of tape, place it over there just to hold it into position. And we're going to run it through and just cut off that top piece. And once we've run it through, as you can see, it just fits perfectly on here. This is super cute. Now, I am going to have to trim a little bit off the bottom here. It's a little longer than I want it to be. So I'm going to lay it out here and I'm going to mark about where I want it to end. Just about in that area. Take it back to my cutter and I'm checking to see where the shoulder mark lines up. And this time, instead of cutting it at 4.5, I'm going to cut it at 4 1/4. And that's going to work out just fine for me. I like that. I think it's going to be great. And I'll now know that all of them, once I've run my strips through the matting die piece, I'll know that all of them need to be cut at 4 1/4 inches from the tip of the shoulder. We cut the bases at 4 1/2 from the tip, and we're going to cut the matting at 4 1/4. And I think that's going to look really great. Let's go ahead and round our bottom corners. And I'm going to ink my edges because it's Halloween and I feel like it just, I don't know, there's something about inking your paper for Halloween crafts. It's a must, right? And now I've removed the backing from my tape. I'm going to apply some glue and stick it down. I'm going to run through and die cut the rest of my scraps with the matting die, and then cut them to 4 1/4 inches from the shoulder cut. Go ahead and glue those down, and I'll be right back. I went ahead and added some Love from Lizi peel-offs because I feel like they look really nice. And so let me show you how I do that. So I have a link for these in the description below. I first saw these on Christy Marcotte's channel, and she uses them on a lot of her cards. And I have just fallen in love with them. I'm so grateful for her to introduce me to them. And I use them on all of my projects, like not just cards. Because whenever you are seaming papers together, like I did on this one, where I had this little scrap and then I added some of my solid colored cardstock on either side, then it's a really great way to cover those seams, to make those transitions seem like they're just part of the design. Or if you have one that's maybe less than straight, slightly crooked, this is a really great way to sort of repair that too. So all I do is I just lay it right on top of the seam that I'm going to want to connect there, and press it over. Go ahead and kind of, press it down. And then I take my little finger blade and I line it right on there, lift it off, just cuts it right in place. And that just looked so neat and clean, and oh, I love the look of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the top one as well. Go ahead and take my blade just right along the edge there, cut that off. There we go. Go ahead and save this for another one. And these are just one of my favorite things. So I wanted to show you that. I wanted to show you how I use them, why I use them. I mean, look at them. They just look great. And so I've put them on these as well. And then I'm just going to go ahead and glue them down on the front, just like I did this one. And once we've got those fronts glued down, I've got some corresponding pieces to put on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those in place. Now we're going to put some grommets on our holes here because I feel like it's a really nice finish. It is for a bookmark. It's for a kid's bookmark, and it's just adds a lot of strength to it. And I like the aesthetics of it. So I'm going to use these smaller grommets here, and I'm choosing to use the ones with these sort of antique brass finish. I feel like it'll look really nice there. I have my smaller cutting mat here that you can see I've accidentally cut all the way through on my hole punch on this one at one point. It was a very stubborn piece of chipboard, and I just kept hitting it with the hammer. Anyway, I used this on top of my regular mat because that way it sort of protects it as well. Or at least if I don't punch all the way through, it does. And I am simply going to position this on here in such a way that I've got it on the mat. I'm going to try to visualize where about the center might be, kind of looking at this line. I'm going to take my punching tool and place it on here and just give it a few whacks. Once I have my hole punched, I'll go ahead and put the pretty side of the grommet on the front, and it then sits on this setting tool base. Okay, just like that, it sort of sits in the groove. I'm going to take the washer and place it over the top, curved side up, take the top setting tool, and then go ahead and give that a few whacks. And that's it. You end up with a really nice finish. You've got this really cool grommet here on the top. I'm going to go ahead and finish this off with a piece of ribbon. I've cut the ribbon to 6 inches in length, and it is longer than it needs to be, but I found that it's just a lot easier if you have a little extra when you're pulling it through that hole. Otherwise, it's really hard to get those little tails in, and we're not cutting off that much, so it's not going to be like super wasteful. Okay, and so once you get it sort of set in place the way you like it, I take my scissors and I'm going to cut kind of a pretty little angle on them. So that's what we're cutting off. It's not a whole lot, but just trimming it down a little bit there. And then I'm going to take a lighter and I'm just going to hold the flame near it so that it will sort of sear that edge so that it won't fray. Okay. And if you're not comfortable doing this, you can purchase something called Fray Check that they have at fabric stores that will stop it from fraying as well. Or you can just use your glue. I have come along and just put glue on the end before, let it dry, and it will do the same thing. Now you could be done with this, but I want to put some glue underneath here to make sure that my ribbon doesn't come undone. So I'm going to loosen it slightly and then I'm going to slide it over. Because I've got this rounded top, it's easy to do that. I'm going to place a dollop of glue above where the grommet is so that it's going to fall in line just underneath the ribbon, okay? And then I'm also going to place a dollop of glue right here on the ribbon where this front piece is going to cover it once I give it a little tug. Tug it in, so that's kind of going underneath there. Straighten it out the way I like it. And then I'm going to take one of these clamps and just set on there. You can also do it with a clothespin if you want and just put it on there. And I'm just holding it in place so that that glue will set, the glue that I just put on there. So I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to punch the hole in my next one and I'll be right back. And once our ribbon has set for a little bit, we'll just take off those clamps and they're going to stay right where they're supposed to be. And I love the way this looks. I just think they're super cute. So let's check out all the ones that I've made. Aren't they fantastic? I just love them. So I'm really happy that I was able to share this with you guys. These are going to be a great alternative to food-based treats for Halloween. I have a link in the description below to the Teal Pumpkin Project, and I would highly encourage all of you to go check that out. We have an increase of allergies and other food issues with children these days, and awareness of those issues is helping to promote inclusion for all kids for Halloween so that they can also feel like they've got a treat on this really fun, spooky holiday too. All right, y'all, that's what I've got for you today. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I hope you're being kind to yourselves, and I hope you're finding some spooky joy in your journey. Thanks so much, y'all. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.